Now we will have a deeper look into legends. So actually there's not that much to say because ggplot2 generates legends automatically. However, sometimes you want to change something. We saw some examples already in changing, for example, the color. We'll also change the color in the legend. But here we will focus on things like, for example, the position of a legend. There are, again, multiple ways to adjust the legend. So the specific scale functions have options to change the legends. We can use the guides function and also as part of the theme function. Here we can see an example where we want to have the legend on the bottom instead of the right side. So we simply use the theme function and say that legend position should be at the bottom. And then you can see that the single entries of the legend are not below each other, but next to each other automatically. So you have different possible values, none, left, right, bottom, top, and inside. And here an alternative, for example, would be to use the guides function. And within that, the guide legend function with position bottom. And you have to specify which guide you mean. In this case, the color guide. Yeah, this is also an important part in ggplot2. Guide is basically an overview term for legends and color bars. Color bars are used if you have a continuous variable mapped to a color. We already saw this before. If you have multiple legends, this is also possible. For example, here you use the color as sepal length and the shape as species, then it will produce two different guides, one color bar for the continuous color and one for the shape with species. So you have two legends in this case. And you can decide to have one of these legends at the right side and one at the bottom. You can use again the guides function for this. Specify for color and for shape where the legend should be plotted. And here again, important for almost everything you would use guide legend, but the exception for continuous colors is you have to use guide color bar. You can also change the order of legends, and I don't mean the order of the items within a legend. This would be something you have to do with changing the order of factor levels, but the order of legends itself. This can be also do with the guides function. So here in the guide color bar or guide legend function, you can define the order so that every time the shape is on the first position and the color here is on the second position. Themes are basically a collection of non-data components you can customize in the plot. This is, for example, the background, the grid lines, but also style of titles, labels, fonts, etc. You can use the theme function and also the theme update function to customize single elements. And there are a lot of predefined themes already present in ggplot. The default is the so-called theme gray theme that you saw already a lot. So you basically have a gray background, have white grid lines with major grid lines, which are bold, and finer middle grid lines, and a certain font style and so on, for example, for the axis. But there are also different themes predefined you can use. For example, most of them have a white background except theme dark, which has an even darker gray background. And they differ in, like, if they have axes. For example, theme minimal doesn't really have lines for the axis, but it has grid lines. Theme classic has axes but no grid lines. Theme void has neither. Theme line draw has basically black grid in the background. Theme black white has also a box around the plot and also grid lines. it's really similar to theme light. You have theme test, which has a box but no grid lines, and you have the, as I already said, the dark theme. So this is already something to choose from and to have basically different styles of plots. You apply these themes simply by adding them to your plot, and there are also things you can adjust. For example, in the theme black-white, you can adjust the base size. So basically, adjusting the base size will make everything larger, and the base line size will, for example, make the grid and the axis ticks and so on larger. Of course, you can also create completely your own theme. And there's also a complete help page on the ggplot website. For example, here in this case, we define a theme where the legend position is at the bottom. We have a justification of the legend to the left. We have the text of the x-axis in a certain size, in red, in bold, and rotated by a degree of 35 degrees. And we have a background that is light green color. And now we apply this to a plot, and you will see how this looks like here. Of course, this theme doesn't really make any sense for practical reasons, but it's just to show you which elements you can basically change with this theme here. And if you have assigned the theme to a certain object, you can just add it again and it's applied. And this you can apply actually to all your plots and have a similar style for each of your plots. It doesn't depend if it's a box plot, a bar plot, a line plot, a scatter plot, all will have the same style. Now for practicing legend and themes, you can have a look at the exercises 4.1 to 4.2.